Yeah, it's a nice day in the backyard. The sun's out. Still a little cool, but we got the door open, and we got a new gasket to go, or weather strip to go around the trunk edge, along this edge. So we might go ahead and see what it takes to put that in. So we get over here and open the package and see what we got. Well, we got this big roll of weather strip. Looks like it's got a place there where it clips on, and I think what we want to do is we want to start here and work our way around, because it's going to have a seam, and you want the seam at the bottom, not at the top. So we'll kind of see how that works out. See how that's going to work. I suppose it just goes on. Let's see, it can go on like that. Which way do you think it goes? Must go that way. Go ahead and put that on. Now we got a little bit of a problem here, because we have this edge that goes up over the lid, so I'm not quite sure whether we have to bend that up out of the way or trim that or what, but we'll see what we get. Really just kind of clips down over that lip. This stuff is made, well, I'm sure more than one place makes it, but this particular product came from Steel Rubber Products. Seems to be pretty good. We've got a new weather strip for the doors and the deck lid. Some other little pieces in the kit that came from them. Well, as we expected, it's a little too long, but fits nicely around there, and we're going to have to, off camera here, we'll figure out where to cut it and what to do in those two spots there where there's some extra sheet metal. Alright, so we got it in there. See how the trunk closes. One of the things you've got to do is make sure that this has where it hooks over the edge, it's got a little bit of a hook there, so you got to make sure you roll it around and get it hooked under there so it's on there real good. Where our seam is here, I think what we're going to do is just get a little black RTV and clean that up a little bit, and then we notched it a little bit to fit over the extra material from that trunk latch. Don't know if that's the right way to do it or not, but that's the way we did it. So now the key is to close the trunk and see how that works. All of a sudden, maybe the trunk lid is going to stick up too high, and we'll have to adjust the latch, but we'll see. Ah, look at that. Nice and tight. Yeah, a little while back we talked about these supports for the electric fan, so we went in and took this one out and cut a section out of it, put it back in. It's as strong as it was before. Fan's not going anywhere, and we've opened up 12 square inches of surface area for air to flow through the radiator. So, you know, don't know what the OG was thinking, but he wasn't thinking about airflow. There's a little snippet here on how things go. This is a carb spacer that was on this car. Big, thick 1-inch aluminum piece with a vacuum port in the back for the PC valve. But as you can see, maybe in the video, the file marks there, I just ran a flat file across that surface of that plate. I had checked it with a straight edge, and it was anything but flat. So just running the file across there, you can see the outside edge is high on both sides. In the center, we're not getting anything. So that tells me that that's a good spot for a big giant vacuum leak. We turn it over and kind of look at the other side, and it's essentially just the opposite. It's high in the center, and we've got no file marks at all on the outside of this plate. So, you know, when you get these things, don't just assume that they're flat and good and ready to go. A lot of this stuff, you have no idea where it comes from and how it's prepared, so you want to double check everything. What we're going to have to do with this piece is put it in a milling machine, and to use it for anything, I mean, I took it off and put a 1/4-inch phenolic spacer on. Even if we want to use this on something else, we're going to have to make sure that it's flat. So more than likely what we'll do, since we're hitting on the outside on this side, we'll put it in the milling machine with this side down, and then take a cut off of this side so we get a nice flat surface, and then turn it over and take a cut off of this side so we have a nice flat surface. And then we'll be able to go ahead and use it. But that's just another thing that you should check. I know these videos get a little old when all you see is the same thing, the carburetor or the engine. Funny thing though, when I was editing the last video, it occurred to me that that fuel pressure gauge not doing much. The OG, the original guy, had a line off the bottom. There's a fitting in between, like a union there. So he had a line screwed in, or a fitting screwed into the union, and then he had a line run back to the firewall, and actually has the fuel pressure gauge mounted inside the car in the dash, which is an absolute no-no. You never want to plumb fuel into the cockpit of the car if you can help it. Now, there are some cars out there, Midget, Sprints, Silver Crown, things like that, that have a fuel pump and fuel lines in the cockpit with the driver. That's a little bit different story. Even then, if there's a way around it, you shouldn't do it. You certainly, in your road car or your drag car or whatever car it is, shouldn't have a line with gasoline in it plumbed to the inside of the car. So when we made all these carburetor modifications and put the smaller plate on there and everything, and all of a sudden the line didn't work, we just capped that line up at the firewall and screwed a pressure gauge into the fitting there and didn't think much about it. But, you know, sometimes when you have time to think, we're not really going to get an accurate measure of fuel pressure by measuring the pressure between the front bowl and the rear bowl. What happens when the needle valve closes here and there is no pressure or flow? The fuel pressure gauge needs to be between the pump and the carburetor, not between the front bowl and the rear bowl. So we're going to have to take that fitting out of there and see if we can trade it for this fitting right here, which is a little bit smaller. Hopefully we'll be able to get away with that. And then plug up that fitting back there. And then we'll get a fuel pressure reading of whatever the pump is putting into the carburetor. So for the sake of science, we left that gauge in back there between the front bowl and the rear bowl, and we put another gauge out here in the main feed into the carburetor. This is a little bit interesting. This gauge fluctuates all over the place with the stroke of the fuel pump. Good thing it's oil filled, kind of dampen that. The other gauge doesn't jump around, and it shows pretty consistent 4 to 5 psi of fuel pressure, where this one, you know, when the needle's bouncing around, it's kind of hard to tell, but it kind of goes from 3 to 6, so, you know, it's probably showing the same pressure. But the other gauge is showing pressure, and it's a much steadier reading, so we'll just leave them both in there for the time being. What the heck.